What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Few Podcast, the pod for the latest Web3 news and the hottest takes in the industry. We are missing, we have two people MIA today. Got Drew and Dudas. What are they doing? Do you guys know? What's Drew?
Great point.
What's Drew doing? He's
I know
Drew's
exactly what Drew's doing.
Actually, I know what
Yeah,
she's
we do
doing.
know what
right
Drew's
now.
doing. He told us.
Yeah, he told us. But yeah, no, we're excited. We also have an amazing guest today, Chris Maddern. You want to introduce yourself for those that I feel like everyone knows you, but you can also introduce yourself.
I'm sure that's not true. Thanks for having me on. I am Chris Maddern, co-founder and CEO of Floor. We are building a mobile-first version of Web3.
Awesome. I feel like you and I met. We always do this. We did this the first episode. It's like, how did you meet the person? I think you and I met when you're Michael Giacone, right? With the Button.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
We met on the rooftop of Button at a party that we had, like this thing that throwing events was like somehow prosperous for business, which it like almost definitely wasn't. But we would do a lot of them on the rooftop of the Button office, and you came along to one, and yeah, then I think I basically stalked you for a bit because I really liked your product, and so I'd be like,
which product was that? Was that
you were running Social Rank at the time, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Social Rank was like Social Rank's pretty cool.
That was a good one. I liked Social Rank.
I used it so much. The company that took it over, because you can't do any of this stuff anymore because Twitter with Elon shut down that API.
Told him at the right time,
Instagram shut down that API. But man, what we could have done if we just had like access to all that stuff would have been amazing. Anyway, this has been a crazy week, guys.
Yeah.
What we have? So we have a little rundown on the side. I don't know if it shows on this side or that side. Got a little pardon your interruption. Is that what it's called? Pardon the interruption, the ESPN show?
Yeah.
That shows
I think they go by PDT, as a sports expert in this room.
Yeah. But so we have things on the side that we'll get to. We also have a countdown so that we don't over talk.
Drew's not here. We should be okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, without Mike and Drew, I feel like we're just gonna be trying to fill the episode.
No, Mike doesn't pay attention. So we're he's
just browsing the internet.
He's definitely like trolling in some like Telegram chat, and then like Drew calls on him, and then he answers the question like you would in like a kid in his school that like has no idea what the topic was. So it's been funny.
But then yet somehow still has a prescient point.
Yes. Well, Chris, you're here. You're can you tell us what's the latest with Floor? Are all our NFTs worth zero now? Like what's going on?
Oh man, the
Except
NFT weather
memes.
forecast. No, it's been super fun and interesting. Like the last 2 or 3 weeks has been a little bit of a resurgence in some of what you would have called classical NFT stuff from the last bull case. But honestly, the whole summer has been an exploration of like new and interesting NFT-like things, ranging from Coinbase entering with Base and creating like the on-chain summer, Zora coming in and like making this fun and free, easy minting stuff. And like for us, a lot of that's way more aligned with what we see millions of people doing going into 2024, which is collecting things that have personal relevance, group relevance, aren't necessarily high-ticket financial items. So that's been really interesting to watch. And then, like the last 2 or 3 weeks, crypto's been a little kinder to us. And actually seen a resurgence in a lot of the stuff that we were collecting last year, some more kind of traditional crypto speculator style NFT products, which has been, I think, cool for all of us who were around then and maybe had some bags lying around.
Yeah. It's funny. Anoop and I were chatting yesterday because he came on and we spoke about the future NFTs. And we did give Goldberg a shout out for being the one in the group that sort of takes the emotion out of it and just like, hey, like, would I buy this ape at 90 ETH? No, I wouldn't. So I'm going to just, sell it. And where everyone's like, I made all this money already. It's like, no, that's not how you're supposed to think about it. You're supposed to like, if you wouldn't buy this thing at this moment, you should sell it.
Yeah.
You're a much better trader than most, I think.
Oh yeah. Goldberg was the naysayer of 2021, 22, 23. Maybe, with SBF in jail, he'll flip that 24. but
We were
I
stuck in
remember-
Zed. Also Zed.
Exactly.
That was what Anoop said.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about. Everyone was flipping horses. Taub and Drew had like a stable hand, and I remember Goldberg and I hung out in New York, and he had this spreadsheet, and he was doing like all this math, and he goes, "None of it works anymore. I sold everything." And I was just like, "Wait, what the fuck do you mean? You had like 900 horses?" Yeah, he goes, "I sold everything." He's like, "I found some guy.
You bought them from me now."
Yeah, like he's like, "I liquidated. I'm out." And then like 3 weeks later, he's like, "I'm out of apes." He's like, and it went one after another. He goes, "The financial incentive for this does not make any sense. The business model doesn't make any sense. I'm out." And then he bought a house. So good for you. Good for you. Right.
Someone walked with money.
There's some nuance around all of that, but that's the story that we'll go with today.
Yeah.
Look at you, gassing him up, just making him feel good.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna get into the rundown in 4 minutes. There's some stuff that's not on this that I'm thinking about now. Well, this weekend is Ape Fest. Anyone in Hong Kong right now? Going? No?
I mean, what do you guys, before we even talk about that, what would you think they would consider a success for Ape Fest, right? Like we're all in entrepreneurs, we're all in business, right? Like you have to explain to your team what a base level success looks like. Do you think it's that 50 people show up, right? There's 10,000, hypothetically 10,000 potential. How many uniques? Maybe 7,500, 8,000 of apes. What percent?
Well, there's mutants. There's 20,000 mutants.
Okay, so fine.
Quotas.
Increase
and then
the
punks
TAM.
are welcome as well.
How many people do you think show up to this event, and what do you think they are expecting?
So they'll get a couple hundred, but I don't think that's what drives success for them. Like their holders are their holders. We've talked about the difference between investors and holders and future customers, right? For them, I think it's about brand partnerships, user-generated content, trust, right? Like how does this build the brand, not how do I make a couple hundred people like have a great time for a weekend?
Yeah. I've heard some things that they're sort of approaching the weekend a little bit like Apple would approach an event. I think there's like a bunch of announcements coming with it. So it's not just like, oh, we're going to go party and we're having I think we're going to hear news. I've also heard that there's a bunch of marketplace news that's going to happen in by this time next week. There's going to be a lot of like shake up in the like marketplace of NFT space. I've heard a few things. I can't really say anything, but I've just heard a few because February is coming up soon with OpenSea saying that they're not going to do any of the royalties anymore. So that's February. So for anyone who doesn't know, if you have an operator filter, you can guarantee revenues right now, or royalties right now for your collection. And even if you have the operator filter, in February, OpenSea is saying we don't care anymore.
What is the operator filter? Just explain.
Operator filter allows you to block marketplaces. So this is one of the things that lets you do.
This is within the ERC20 smart contract within your collection.
The 721s lets you basically say, hey, if I want to get 5% royalty, like I can block you if you don't follow the thing.
It's on-chain royalty preferences. And people can choose whether they respect the creator's preferences or not.
And if they don't, you block them.
Despite having said, we're going to build this thing, is now saying, actually, you know what, royalty preferences aren't going to work because the corpus of people who do marketplaces are just not going to play ball and they can't stand alone.
I mean, this is just an interesting conversation in general. Is our marketplaces a viable business moving forward? Right? Like, is anyone in their right mind going to launch a marketplace, a Web3 marketplace right now? I can't see any of us investing in that. Right?
Highly verticalized potentially. Like I think you'll see things like DraftKings and stuff like that create like these very verticalized, closed ecosystem marketplaces, potentially with higher takes and like closed input of funds, potentially through other platforms as well. But general purpose royalty driving marketplaces were an experiment of the first age of NFTs that I don't think will go forward with us, is my personal hypothesis.
I agree. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and we're going to get to the rundown in a second, but I think that there's the issue is right. Like every collection would block places that like didn't give them their percentage, right? Their royalty percentage. The problem is most of the biggest contracts were made before any of that stuff was thought of. So what ends up happening is, like, for example, apes or Pudgy Penguins or Azuki, like those original contracts, right? Where some of these people care about the provenance, there's nothing that they can do without just burning a new collection to do it. So it's a little of a pickle for some of these collections where like they just have to find another business model to some degree. So, all right, let's get to SafeMoon. Not, how do you say that? Safu? Safe, but is this making Safu?
Yeah.
Anyone know what's going on with SafeMoon? Doesn't seem that it's so safe. People lost money.
The base level of what I know is that, good old fucking Gary Gensler is coming in to protect retail investors 4 years later again. So everyone who got screwed by SafeMoon, I don't even know what SafeMoon is. I probably bought it, probably lost money, probably don't remember it. I don't know what it is anymore. It was from the last cycle. I'm pretty sure it was like the 2017 cycle of ICOs. Some shit coin that
No, this was like, oh man,
my
partner and a lot in my network were like pretty heavy in it and trading it and arbitraging it. This was like peak probably 2022. Like kind of early meme token-ish. They had a lot of volume.
What did they do? What is it an L1? Is it a...
I have no idea. You're asking the wrong person. I never knew.
I'm on their website right now, which is great because I still can't tell. Like,
I feel like I'm sat here flipping a coin on, do I fall on those SEC regulators overreaching again or scammers going to scam? And I really don't know which of those two things happened here.
So we talked about this for a second yesterday of like, is the Web3 world like built for scammers, or is the world built for scammers and Web3 makes it easier? Right. And like, I would probably argue that there's just more opportunity in Web3 to scam versus the regular markets. But like, yeah, SafeMoon, whatever. Okay. Moving on now, because
we lack any social reputational layer. It's a very unevolved ecosystem with lots of raw opportunity. So yeah, Wild West.
Yeah. All right, let's get to Recur. I think we all have some Recur. I've got, I think.
Tal, before you go into that, can you go into like how much money they raised and what the purpose of Recur was? And if you don't,
let's set up what happened here. Why is this a story?
Yeah. So I feel like Recur better than most people here.
So Recur was peak 2020, 2021, where it was two former executives from some talent agency somewhere who had done the majority of licensing contracts and IP contracts for that management agency. And they came out, I think at like under $10 million valuation. And the next one was like 200 million or some ridiculous amount, raised $50 million. And the idea was that they were winning Viacom IP. Right. And so they had a stranglehold on everything that includes Viacom. And if you're not familiar, Viacom and CBS are two of the largest IP holders in the world. You have Nickelodeon, you have Care Bears, you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, like IP that most of 2021, when you're looking at it, of creating new IP of Goblin Town, of, Bored Apes, whatever, or looking at like Care Bears, which, as we're all like later millennials, right? Care Bears was like a book that we all had. It was a cartoon. It had like cultural relevancy to us.
Book?
Yeah, there were Care Bears books. I remember that. Like, I might be mistaken.
I didn't know that either.
Berenstein Bears, actually. I think I'm mistaking Berenstein Bears.
Definitely. Very different.
Yeah, very different. But they
Care Bears were more plushies, I think. Plushies and like toys.
So Recur had the IP, and then they were creating a marketplace, a simple to use marketplace to mint NFTs, to have a wallet, to be able to sell and transact across there. So that's kind of like the overview.
Can I ask the question, Anoop? As someone who never purchased a single thing from Recur, I understand they had, I guess, the licenses in some form for that IP. Were the owners of that IP, the creators, I guess that you would call them, or the entities that were involved, like, were they, who basically drove decisions around how the IP was used? And were they just sort of like collectibles, or was there something interesting ever done around them?
So it's a great question. This was probably one of the hardest things to figure out in 21, 22. So I was at Nifty Gateway when we were talking to a lot of brands, the same brands that Recur was talking to. And the issue that exists is that what you just described was the biggest problem, right? Like, what is the utility? Who is driving it? Who is leading it? And I think with Recur, they actually were a consulting business on top of their minting platform, and they were driving all of that. But they raised something like $60 million. They had a bunch of really successful launches. If I remember correctly, like they did. So Recur dropped these like I don't even know how to describe
Passes.
it. It was a
Like
card with like a color pass on it.
Yeah.
And they dropped one on OpenSea, and I remember it sold for like $2 million or something. Like the, pass number 0, sold for a ridiculous amount. And then they did like 5 or 6 million in primary sales on their drop. And this was peak euphoria, right? But they never actually said what that pass would unlock the entire time. And there was a guy in one of our groups that I'd be like, what does the pass do? And he's like, can't tell you that, it's secret. And it's one of those really funny things.
The answer was nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely nothing. It was
It takes your money
to make more money.
I think we had 30 in the DAO, by the way. Like
we had. I mean, I went in, didn't do well on that one either. The funnier part now is that the value of the asset is, I think, $6. And if you want to transfer it off of their platform onto your MetaMask, it's $29.60. And
Wait,
so,
really?
I was trying to do this. Someone in one of our groups told me
That'll
that
cut supply, make them more valuable.
it's true if there's any use for it, right? Like, I don't know, if we had Drew in here, he'd be like, it's
coming back. It's coming back, guys. Don't get
buying up all the supply. But yeah, they dropped Care Bears. I mean, let's see what other drops.
I remember a bunch of Nickelodeon stuff.
Yeah.
And
Star Trek
I met
was the other big one, right?
Rugrats, Hey Arnold.
Yeah, Hey Arnold.
Right. So like,
I feel like Ren and Stimpy, maybe.
Was it Ren and Stimpy?
I don't know. But the point is that, first of all, like, where did all this money go?
That's the question. Like I asked,
because they made money on every single drop, and they made a lot of money on every single drop. At least the first 10, plus their own drop. Where did it all go? How are they
started with
what?
How do we know that it all went?
What do you mean? Like, because they sold out.
Did they
sold
return
out.
capital?
Are they returning capital?
How do you know they didn't return $10 million to investors?
We can find out.
I guess we don't. It could be. It could be.
I know multiple Web3 projects and marketplaces that have given up to the degree where they're like, I have a year or two of runway. We just don't believe anymore. And nobody's inspired. And so we're returning 10 cents, 50 cents, whatever cents on the dollar to our investors.
It's
really
really interesting.
I know nothing about Recur. If they have $10 million in the bank left, what would you suggest they do with it?
That's a great question.
I think that's the problem. I've met a bunch of founders as well where they have money, they just don't know what to do with the money in the team. And so we've had a lot of people come to Floor. We've done one small acquisition in the past and say, hey, like, love what you're doing. Seems like you guys have a plan. We don't have a plan. Would you be interested in joining? And actually a bunch that have come with, millions of cash in the bank and said, like, we'll bring the cash and like, we'll sell it for equity and like join the team and come on, come explore with you.
We spoke last week a little bit about like the swoops and sort of the winding down of that business. We had a couple of those conversations where it was like, hey, we have no money, but a really interesting business that users love. A couple companies have a lot of money, no product at this point. Is there a way to make it work? It's really, really difficult and nuanced. And honestly, at this point, most investors are pretty fatigued and they're like, just give me my 30 cents on the dollar back. I can recycle it, write that tax write-off down. Like, there's a lot of nuance behind the scenes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the reason why we wanted to bring it up today, because this has been happening for a few weeks, was that we in one of our chats, we were talking about how it costs more money to move it. Because what they're doing, and we should have brought this up in the beginning, they're shutting down the platform. So basically, your NFTs are going bye-bye unless you transfer it out, but it costs more money to transfer it out than the thing's worth.
But it's
And
on
that's
Polygon.
Very
How did it
ironic
cost
for Web3.
$29.
So no, if you transfer on ETH, right? So the original Recur passes, there was some on ETH, some on Polygon, and then the other drops were all different. But on ETH, right? Like my thought was that on ETH, NFTs are worth more, right? So put it over there. But if it's on Polygon, like I'll still transfer them out just for shits and giggles to, look at in the future and know that how much money I wasted on things. But I don't think it'll have any true utility. Gilbert, you're laughing. Are you just not even reason to keep them?
I don't know.
What do they do?
I would never pay more money for something that is worth
No,
less.
I'm not going to pay for it if it's free on Polygon to transfer.
Sure. I mean, why not?
I'm not adding capital to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they also gave a lot of free NFTs. So I think I got a free Care Bear at one point. I don't know where it is. I'm sure
Which one?
Somewhere. I think it was a generative Care Bear, actually. I don't think I got a certain character. I think I got yeah, you're what are their names? I don't even know. I'm sure
like one is like the sun. I don't really remember.
Of course. All right. Let's get to Elon. Elon went on Joe Rogan. What was it, last week? This week? A few days ago? First of all, they started talking about Beeple in the beginning, because Beeple's done a lot of Elon visuals in his drawings. They're like, it's funny them saying like, that Beeple guy's a weird guy. Like he's weird. But then they talk about NFTs and make fun of it and say it doesn't really make sense. Anyone have any hot takes on Elon ripping NFTs?
The first thing that was funny was he said like it's not even saved on the blockchain. And I was like, oh, you're correct. Most NFTs are saved at like it's not even IPFS or Arweave. It is saved on AWS, right? So you're just linking to an S3 hub. Okay, you're kind of correct on that part for those projects that were too cheap to actually put the imagery on blockchain or not, technically able or whatever it may be. That was funny, I think. And I think Elon Joe Rogan conversations just in general are meant to be choppable clips to make them both more famous, right? Like every time they do it, there's something like Elon ripping a bowl or like, it is just great marketing that they do on that. So.
Yeah. I mean, this also comes from the guy who promotes like Shiba coin. So I don't know what to take from that. I can appreciate like a real-time bear, but like a Monday morning quarterback who now says like, it's not so hard to talk about crypto and Web3 and NFTs in a negative light right now, right? Like I think there was a tweet yesterday or today from Jason Calacanis, who like literally had in the tweet, like, I'm not one to like talk about and like congratulate myself, which was literally the whole point of the post.
That's a very Jason Calacanis post.
Totally. Of course. So,
I mean, you can't get a conversation out of him without knowing that he invested in Uber in the seed round. So to not congratulate himself, But I find, I don't know, it sort of made me think a little bit like, yes, he's wrong. Yes, he's correct in a bunch of ways. I've always felt like the most I've sort of felt like the most interesting part since I've started in Web3 and crypto and just interested in specifically like truth and all the stuff we've done. I've always felt like the most interesting part, because in the end of the day, unless you're historically relevant, like a CryptoPunk or some early NFT, unless the team does something, the thing isn't worth anything, right? So that just sort of like throws away this idea of, oh, okay, we own this thing. It's like, well, you own it, but it's not worth anything unless somebody's actually working on it and working towards making it of value. So I've always thought the more interesting thing was like and again, IP needs to actually be worth something and do something. But I always thought the ownership, the IP ownership, and on one hand is the interesting part of potential PFPs, and on the other hand, like the subscription and unlocking of like, oh, I own this thing and I can do things with this, or there's as time goes on and you sort of build out your whether it's like a passport in the future and it's like it's an NFT, but you don't think about it as it's like your digital wallet. I always thought that stuff was the more interesting. I think some of the other stuff is just, I don't know, here today, gone tomorrow type of stuff. So
For sure.
I think in general, just Elon, anything Elon says is just he is the marketing, right, for everything he does, and it's just really it's amazing to have that distribution. It's something I'm very jealous of, right?
And the root of his argument began with a critique of this isn't properly following the principle that permanence of digital ownership is important. And so what he was essentially saying is permanence of digital ownership is important, which, I think we all kind of agree with. And yeah, like the grand experiment that is a general purpose model that represents ownership has found a lot of dumb things to own, but in time it will also find a lot of really important and interesting things to own, and then creating a composable market where those things can be liquid. Like, I think that is inherently and unarguably a valuable thing for the future. So thanks for telling everyone about it, Elon.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into WeWork bankruptcy. I know we've all probably worked at a WeWork. Everyone here has worked at a WeWork at one point. I think Chris is in a WeWork right now. Are they kicking you out? Are they kicking you out of the WeWork, Chris?
Wait, hang on. Sorry, I'm getting evicted right now.
Yeah.
All right. So have they filed for bankruptcy yet, or are they about to? What's the status right now?
I believe they're about to.
They're about to. All right.
Anyone? There'll be more details. Yeah. My guess is someone will acquire those assets or some of the assets, as there's a lot of physical, leases and stuff here.
Is it all leases? Do they own anything, or is it all lease?
Oh, remember
I think in the first restructuring, I believe, took them out of ownership, right? At one point they bought, like, what was it? The Lord and Taylor building on Fifth Avenue. But I think they're out of that. And now it's mostly leases.
I mean, if you remember the movie with Adam, I mean, this is going like 3 restructurings ago. Adam Newman owned like 7 buildings that he leased back.
He may still own some of those buildings.
Yeah. I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
I read a great tweet about Adam Newman a while back, and it's like Adam Newman. I don't remember the exact tweet, but I'll give you the general sense. And it's one of, I think about it a lot. It's like Adam Newman is either, not like a lot, but it just comes to mind every once in a while. Adam Newman is either, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's either that he is a crook, right? Or it's an amazing story of a Jewish man taking money from Saudi and like basically like reclaiming like family money from Saudi or something. It's very funny. I gotta find the tweet, but it's one of those like classic rethinking of how it actually happened.
There was like a big debate, I guess, when it was announced. What was this, about a year ago, that he raised a ton of money from Andreessen and otherwise for a new co, and it's like, how do you back someone again like this? And I think it's actually an interesting debate, right? Like, there's actually very little evidence, to my understanding, that there was really any fraud here. It was more just like exuberance and
collective hallucinations.
Exactly.
Like super big vision and very poor business fundamentals, but like almost pulled it off. And like, listen, in the world of venture where it's super high risk, high reward, like, I don't know, backing someone like that, maybe with some lessons and some smarter, people around them and some governance, probably works out better overall than just like, a boring.
You definitely asked for a board seat though.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
So two things that do you know all those like those guys like Matt and Jesse that were working at like WeWork, like the WeWork Labs early on? Yeah. And I'm good friends with both of them, and they everyone would always say like he was the best pitch person like ever. Like he could sell anything to anyone, and he was just so charismatic and come in the room and just like make you believe. So I see that. Also, just knowing some stuff about his new company, he's actually wasn't. I mean, maybe
What is
like
the new company?
it has to do with like
Residential real estate?
carbon. No, it's like carbon footprint
There's two
stuff.
there's two different versions and aspects out there. I don't think they really know.
So I know the company, the carbon, like there's like a Web3 one. It's like a carbon footprint offset with Web3. He's actually, he may be considered a co-founder, but there's actually two girls that I know that actually started the company. I think he was just like the first check and then like sort of became a co-founder-ish. But I don't think he's doing day-to-day stuff there. I think these two girls are running it, not him. I could be wrong. But at least last when I spoke to them, because they're from the Upper West Side and I knew them. And I think he bought a bunch of houses in Miami now. So he's down here. He's got like a whole little thing. If you ever go on a
friend
boat,
of mine, and I can't say who, but bought his old townhouse in New York City, and there's some interesting things there.
Wait, what kind of interesting things, Goldberg?
I can't say.
Like secret rooms?
I can't say.
wait, like we talk like you can't even talk at high level. What like is it?
No, nothing
like,
crazy. Just it's more that like the buyer doesn't want to be associated with it, and so don't want to share anything that can lead to it. I don't know.
Got it.
The other debate around like WeWork is like, it wasn't a bad business. People actually loved it, but was almost a victim of its own exuberance and valuations, right? If they were just worth a couple $1,000,000 and then tens of millions of dollars, they might have been able to have a nice little exit of a couple $100 million to like a Regus or a traditional kind of real estate operator.
He had an exit of 1.3 billion walking away.
Like that package was
that
bonkers.
package. I mean, the negotiation of that package, right? Like this is unrelated to the business, but like the gumption and ability to go against Masa, JP Morgan, kind of like all of the biggest financial minds of the decade, and be like, nah, I want fucking more. Like, I mean, the balls to just like you've got to be you got to be able to have.
Yeah, but that was sown in the prior negotiations where he had all the leverage and everybody wanted to back him, and he had all of the voting power, and everything was set up as if there was no downside, which I think we all know is never the case.
Yeah, and I mean, the only way he pulled that off was without it, they'd lose all their money, right? So the company's over. So, he pushed it as far as he can get it. But all right, so WeWork Bankruptcy. We'll see where we are next week. All right, big story of the week, which we didn't know we were going to have. We didn't know we were going to have until last night is SBF. He guilty. Okay, before we start, because isn't there like a second trial also that's coming in a few months? Like this isn't over.
The government can continue going after him for other things. So I was reading an article last night. The judge has to just find out if I don't know what it is. If they go after him for these other things, the sentencing date might change.
And the sentencing date's not till sometime next year, right?
Yeah, March, I believe.
Yeah. Is that like fair? First of all, is that like fair? Like now the guy's, I guess like he's going away for a long time. So
he's still in jail for this entire time.
Yeah.
He doesn't get out of jail.
I know.
It counts against his, 110 years.
When you're going for life, it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, what's the point of keeping on like prosecuting this guy if he's already in jail for more than his biological lifetime?
Well, no, he's not yet. He's not yet because it's not. So, okay, I think that's the first thing. Let's make some bets because we all were betting we sort of bet on this already. How long do you think he gets? Because he's not going to nobody gets the full, the max, right? That's not how it usually works. Is he in jail for the rest of his life? Or does he get out at like 70 years old? Goldberg, what do you think?
I think he gets out. It's not a strong opinion. I think he's going to get like 30 years, in which case the way that it works, typically you serve 2/3 of that, assuming for good behavior. So I think he's out, as an adult with like some life ahead of him.
I mean, look, his parents are super powerful. They were super powerful legal
it's too high profile
at Stanford, right? They're connected out the fucking ass, right? Like, I mean, I talked about this yesterday. Like my favorite, I think they're the greatest grifters of our generation is like the parents of the best grifter who literally went, and there's like emails of this where the dad goes, Sam, I'm only getting paid $250,000. I'm going to have to talk to your mom about this. And then all of a sudden, Mama Bear calls, and Dad's making $1 million, right? With a $35 million house as a bonus. Like, just phenomenal legal grifters where they know, like, I think America has one of the best legal systems, but it is not, it does not get away from like the human corruption level. And like, these parents and their legal compadres at Stanford were trying to figure out how to get Sam off of all of this shit. They believed that they would get him off. And so it didn't work here. They're not going to stop trying, right? Like, even if he's sentenced to like 80 years, they're going to be working like the pardon board or whatever that is to like put him in like the Connecticut.
They just need the right they need the right president. They need
I
the
don't
right
see
president.
it. I don't see it at all.
They're the Mr. Miyagi of grifting of all time.
You don't, you guys think that political power won't get Sam, like whatever it is, you don't think that like he's going to get 30% off taken off because of political power?
No.
Zero chance.
I don't think
Not
there's
for
any
the next
political
24
power
months.
left.
Yeah.
Like,
got no
I
money.
think this
He's
might
got
be
no money for
revisited
them.
later. Like, fundamentally, it's too
didn't
hyper.
one of the parents' friends throw down like 200 million in bail money?
I think it was just I don't think it came out who actually did it.
I think it was
or did come out.
Well, let me find
Did it come out? I think it also depends. Like, it maybe look different because I think, aren't they still going through like how much money is really there, or are we past that already?
No,
They're
there's-
still figuring out how much money. So like, if they recover enough money that like they pay people back, maybe people look at it differently in a little bit. But as of right now, I mean, I just don't see a scenario where he doesn't get. I think he's getting life. I think he's getting Bernie Madoff type of sentence. I mean, maybe Goldberg's right and he gets like 30 years, but I don't know. I don't see him getting out. I think they're going to be like, you ruined people's lives. People committed suicide because they lost their money on like. So I just don't see how he's going to be able to. I mean, this is the biggest. Yeah, you're wearing your.
You're wearing this
It's
shirt.
such a good
Nice.
shirt. Yeah.
Of course it is.
So
Yeah.
the person who gave bail was the former dean of Stanford Law. Literally, the story just keeps getting better. His name is Larry Kramer, former dean of Stanford Law School, and Andrea Popke, a Stanford computer scientist, both signed as guarantors. And they put $500K and $200K down.
But didn't he actually have to go back to jail? Wait, did they lose their money? Because didn't he have to go back to jail because he was using the internet?
I think they
No.
probably lost.
I think you only lose your money if they actually escape.
If they
Got
abscond.
it.
That's
Got
right.
it. But he went. He got. Remember,
Yeah.
he was like using the internet or something.
And like
It was
witness
witness
tampering almost.
Oh yeah.
I think the
Just a
difference
little
here
bit.
when it comes to like sentencing and get like, I compare it, think about like Madoff or Elizabeth Holmes. I think he and Elizabeth Holmes are a little bit different in that this was not set out at the beginning as intentional fraud, right? Like you could tell like he got ahead of his skis. It started off with some gray area stuff and then it just got really, really bad. And again, like the crime is usually the cover up is worse than the crime versus where like Madoff wasn't even making initial investments and it was literally built as a Ponzi scheme for day one. And so does that add a redeeming quality to this? Like maybe, I don't know, like maybe it takes it from 60 years to 30 years, but like it's still obviously really, really bad.
How much did Elizabeth Holmes get?
20 years, 30 years, or something like
No.
Oh, I didn't think it was that long.
No, she didn't get that long.
I thought 7 to 8. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
11
have
years and
that.
3
9
months.
years in prison.
I have some good Elizabeth Holmes tea, but I don't think I could share.
11 years and 3 months. She'll serve like 6 to 8 of that.
Yeah, she'll serve
Yeah.
16. I mean, so she married into a hoteling empire family, which is an interesting thing. I have some details on that side that I
Wait,
have to share as well.
I know some stuff about that too.
Yeah,
Do you know what I know? Hold on.
I don't know.
Hold on. I'm going to the private chat for a second. Hold on, I'm messaging you now. Yeah.
Oh no.
That's true. I
Oh,
promise
no
you.
way.
I have people who went to school with her. And I was, okay, quick tangent, Elizabeth Holmes tangent. So I have a good friend, and I'm telling it here because I've told people privately, but it's a funny story. This is a good Elizabeth Holmes story. This is the best Elizabeth Holmes story, honestly. So when I was raising money for Social Rank in 2014, I went to San Francisco to meet some investors, and I went with my co-founder Michael, and we stayed at my friend. I won't name who the names are, but I stayed at my friend's house. And her boyfriend at the time, now they're married, they're expecting a child. But we went to their house, and we were sleeping on their couch, and we were going to meet VCs. And we end up going to see Gone Girl. Remember Gone Girl? Ben Affleck, Rosamund Pike. We went to go see Gone Girl in the movie theater, all the four of us, like on a Sunday afternoon. And because we were there for like a week and a half. And so we get out of the movie and we're walking back to their house, apartment, whatever it was. And the girl said to the guy, it's like, that Amy Dunn, who's the main character, reminds me a lot of Lizzie. And at the time, nobody knew who Elizabeth Holmes was. And they went to Stanford, or one of them went to Stanford. It's like, it reminds me a lot of Lizzie. And he's like, yeah, really. And we're like, me and Michael were like, who's Lizzie? And like, there's this girl that went to Stanford with us, and she has this startup that like Henry Kissinger's on her board, and she's crazy, and she's a sociopath, and she was really kicked out of Stanford, but or asked not to return, but like she spins it as a story that she left to start a company because she got caught in some lie with whatever. And so I look her up and I'm like, what is like, who's this Lizzie person? And I end up hitting up a friend at the time, my friend who was a reporter at The Observer. And I'm like, have you ever heard of this startup? It's like an $8 billion startup. It's got like all these people on the board. They're saying like she's a sociopath. Anyway, she looks into her. She's like, I can't find anything. And then a year and a half later, the Wall Street Journal article came out. And everyone that I told that story to were like, oh my God, you knew before. So yeah, she's apparently a sociopath prior. But so yeah, so it was never reported, but apparently she was asked not to return to Stanford. That's not the true story of her leaving. Was not she was leaving to start a startup. She was leaving because she got into some hot water there, actually.
I mean, of everything in that story, my favorite part is like she like added the voice, right? Like she made like I'm Elizabeth Holmes. like she thought that would transform people's perception and the Steve Jobs look and all of that. I mean,
didn't it?
Yeah, it
didn't
definitely
work.
It definitely worked, right?
We can look back and say like how everybody knows that all these people are frauds. Like I saw, I don't know if you read the other tweet, Alfred Lin from Sequoia, like pretty tone deaf, like, oh, glad the trial end. Like we got misled by SBF. Like, but these people know what they're doing. They know how to find their marks, right? Like they know who to go after and kind of how to do it, sometimes intentionally or unintentionally. And this is how we wind up in the situations we wind up with. So I've learned to be super skeptical about everything in life.
SBF, he tricked some fairly smart people.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Sequoia, Paradigm is like typically pretty spot on this stuff. Or maybe no, it wasn't Paradigm. It was Matt at Sequoia before. He tricked some people, right? I like Elizabeth Holmes, like besides Tim Draper, which you could say whatever you want, but like it was mostly people who didn't know the space.
Yeah, Kissinger. Like, she had like
George Soros. He's not a dummy.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
so,
but,
like, yeah.
But
I think it's not
Soros
about tricking people. It's about finding the people that won't spend the time to dig in and care, right? FTX was minting cash and revenue. It wasn't fake. What was going on underneath it and like the controls, it's just like, again, this is the world of venture that we were in and we'll come back to again at some point, right? It's so competitive and everything moves so fast. It's built on risk. Like I'm going to get in this once in a lifetime company. And if every now and then, candidly, Sequoia is wrong on something like that, they don't really care. And it doesn't affect them financially.
Yeah. No, it's wild. So, all right. So what's the time frame for SBF stuff? So, by the way, the memes were immaculate last night. I mean,
People put
such
something
good.
out also. I don't know if you saw it. It was good.
Wait,
It was
who?
like him. It was like SBF like laying naked in his jail cell with the poster above him of the sketch artists
Oh,
of himself.
By the way, I don't think that was the real sketch artist. I think that was the freaking that was the AI done. Like I
I
think
don't
people
know.
were trying to make it like that, like he paid off it because like it's a good funny story.
Yeah.
But I think it was just an AI generated version.
Probably.
Yeah, and he probably has some money hidden also, right? Like there's no way.
Yeah. The question, how can you find it, is going to be, and then it can always be reclaimed. So like it's almost like he can never spend it.
Did they take all of it? I imagine they took all of his money to some degree, right?
I'm sure.
Right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
So
they clawed back a bunch of his parents' assets, right? Like they had a bunch of buildings in their names.
do you think they should? Do you think his parents should be on trial? Do you think the sins of the son should? I mean, they were
No.
clearly involved, but they were clear. They knew what was going on. There's no way that they didn't
okay.
know.
Let's start again with like, how do we do a test for, accredited investors, right? It's just like financial. These motherfuckers were like Stanford law professors, right? Their son was setting up like Bermuda-based accounts. When homeboy drops you a $35 million apartment, Chris, you're on mute. When your son drops you a $35 million apartment and then leaves it in the company's name, they are smart enough. Like, look, if any of our parents, we dropped them a house in our company's names, and they're like, yeah, you're not going to get the deed, you own the asset, whatever. Like, you would know that something's amiss, right? Not that there was illegal things going on, but they would know that there is something amiss where.
Well, you just answered the question. There was nothing illegal going on. What are you going to
They
try
didn't
them for?
know, but they knew that something was like ish.
Maybe like when you don't understand crypto and you know that your son is running a $10 billion company, like, I don't know if it was so obvious to the outsiders. None of us knew, like none of their investors knew.
Dude, we thought he was a genius hero. Like,
I mean,
and think about your mom typically thinks you're more of a genius hero than most people. So
I remember Dudas until the day they went down being like, there's no way that FTX is a fraud. And it would have been fun to have him here because he was such a believer in the team.
FTX a fraud? And maybe I don't know the details. Like, I don't think FTX was a fraud.
FTX was a great business. The management on flow of funds as defined by the IRS and the US authorities, it was simple fraud. They took, money from FTX and spent it on whatever the fuck they wanted. Startup investments, leveraged, whatever. And so the fraud of it was just taking the money that FTX was making and then giving
customer deposits.
Yeah, taking customer deposits and doing whatever they wanted with it, right? And basically saying like they took the cash, they put a chit back at FTX and says, "Here's an IOU. We just sent you over $47 billion in FTX token."
FTT.
FTT,
yeah. They were using their own token as the.
There's a difference between like the technical legal definition of what a fraud is, which like, yeah, understood, it's fraud. And like the colloquial usage of did someone set out purely to defraud? And I think like your argument's kind of right, which is, I think it's pretty clear they tried to run a business. Turns out they're really bad at it. They made some bad decisions. And then they started acting fraudulently in order to cover up those like, there's a really good point that at the point that there's a really good chance that at the point a lot of people actually invested in the business, it was a great profit emitting business with a risk profile, which maybe some people should have looked at, but how they managed that risk coming up to play, they acted illegally inside of that.
Yeah. It's crazy that because I always didn't understand this. It's like they saw everything coming in. Like, how do you not just, you're smart people, or at least we thought they were. Like, how do you not front run everything and just like, if you're willing to take deposits of people, why not just use your money and front run the deals, right? Like, I don't get that. And in a lot of places, some of that stuff's legal. Like you can literally, front run your own. So I don't get how they could be that bad. Like, it just.
Well, they were
still-
high half the time, it sounds like.
Yeah, what is it, like Adderall fueled orgies in the Bahamas?
I mean, like
Or
all,
Bermuda,
all of that
Bahamas?
was
A lot
just
of stuff is going to come out in the next couple of years once the dust is settled, and it'll be at least entertaining.
But so okay,
Yeah.
here's my second part of my questions, right? So Caroline, the Indian dude, like these guys took loans, right? Like so in court, it was like, okay, so you took a second $300 million loan. What was it for? Like, I don't know. I just spent all the money. Like these guys went and like there's a movie I've seen, like movies and like funny things about like what would you do if you were given $100 million in Jay? They fucking did it, right? And they didn't even know what they spent the money on. The second loan,
Of course they know. Anoop, of course they know what they spend the money on. Come on.
I mean, but they can't.
They're
They don't
not
have.
saying it.
They don't have any receipts. Like they don't have assets. Like what happens to all of these 5 people who like spent like $3 billion in an 18-month period? Like, do you think they still have like are they still sitting on cash? That's
Did
the
they get
question I have.
immunity?
Yeah, they all got immunity.
That's bonkers. And they are probably
crazy.
sat on like $1 billion of customer
Yeah.
deposits
Oh, yeah.
somewhere.
So do you think they're sitting on cash? Are they, or did John Jay come and get all the money back from them? Or like, what kind of life are they living now? That's
So
my
as
question.
part of their immunity, they definitely needed to seize any assets. The question is, how well was any of it hidden that they can kind of, it's
Live their life.
it's hard. Like the government is not idiots. And the blockchain, as great as it is for a lot of these crimes, is also really bad for some of this stuff. Because
Were the loans on chain? I'd assume the loans were just
No.
like,
no way.
yeah, the company just like wired them $300 million. Like,
Yeah.
And this is another level. This is on a different level. All right. We're gonna wrap this up in a minute, but I don't know. It just seems so crazy. You know what? I'll end with one thing, is that someone who's like ruined their reputation a little bit on this, a lot of people have, but one person that like didn't need to and did is Michael Lewis, right? Like his book was just like, you guys saw this, right? Michael
I
Lewis's
didn't read
book?
it, so tell me more about the book. I know
Money,
Michael Lewis, I love
Moneyball,
it.
The Big Short. He basically wrote like, SBF's not a bad guy. He's just like a little misguided or whatever. And it was just like it was a little bit like, felt like he was like paid off in a weird way, like just try to sway the jury or sway the press cycle. It's just very weird. He was like embedded with them the whole time. It's like, it was just very odd. Like that, the fact that he was there, this guy who, wrote The Big Short, wrote Moneyball, wrote Liar's Poker. I mean, he was just like, he was there for like the past year before it even happened. It's crazy. I don't know. There's something so fishy there that was just weird. I don't know.
yeah,
Did anyone
they
see
got
that book?
something on him.
I mean, I kind of taking that a step further. Like, I think in the tech world, we have small or short-term memories. I don't think the people working at FTX, the people I don't think it's that harmful to their careers that their boss was a fraud. I think they'll be able to recover, but those top 5, like people at Alameda, Caroline, like I wonder, I would love like a VH1 Where Are They Now in 2 years of like seeing where Caroline is and what she's doing, what Saudi Arabian beach she's lying on.
I know we got to leave, but I'll just say in the last 15 seconds, I was actually surprised at how little interest and press this trial got. Like, think about like Johnny Depp and the world. And I guess because this wasn't really like on TV in the same way, but it had that ability. But it wound up being a bit of a anticlimactic thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. We'll probably get like a Netflix docu series in a few years that will like
Who plays SBF?
Yeah.
Bloomberg already launched one. Like Bloomberg launched one like 3 days ago of like, the documentary. And I barely I only know it because I know the person who created it, but I didn't see it pop up in anything else. And it's like a Bloomberg original. Like, I'll share the link.
Listen, I think SBF's just not as attractive as like, someone like Adam Newman or Travis Kalanick or whatever. So all right. Thanks to everyone here for tuning in. Thanks Dave and Noob. Thanks Chris for coming. Really appreciate you filling in today. Make sure to like. Sorry, say again.
Happy to seat Phil anytime.
Oh, yeah, of course. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like this, obviously. As always, the podcast will be published on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts within the next 24 hours. And see you next Friday at 1 p.m. We should have everyone back.